Welcome to the Aced It podcast, where we turn science into sense. This is our 12th season of Aced It, and we're brought to you via the Justice Community Overdose Innovation Network, or JCOIN. I would like to celebrate a bit this season, for as we start season 12, we've reached 21,000 downloads and counting. Woohoo! Yeah, not because we're famous, certainly not, but because that means at least 21,000 times our listeners have learned something about overdose, opioids, opioid use disorder, medication-assisted treatment, and/or harm reduction. And that, my friends, warms my very grateful heart. Also, just a quick plug for a few other JCOIN features that you might not know about. Did you know you can get technical assistance for your organization from the experts at JCOIN for free? And did you know you can apply for small research grants to help fund innovative study ideas? Yep, through JCOIN. And did you know you can apply to be a JCOIN Leap Scholar or Investigator to improve your own skills? Also through JCOIN. If you didn't know about these things, check out our website, JCOIN-CTC.org, and learn about the many JCOIN offerings beyond Aced It that may help you learn and grow in ways that improve lives. With that, I'm honored that you're with us. I'm Danielle Rudes, your host, and this is Aced It. Hey, thanks for tuning in again to another episode of Aced It. This is season 12, episode 7. And as you know, this season we're talking all about roles, responsibilities, and reactions to overdose. And of course, I mean that we're looking at how people in different environments and roles prevent and/or react to overdoses. Today, we're diving into the role that community supervision staff, so people like probation officers and parole officers, play in preventing overdose. And we're going to consider how prepared they are to support people with opioid use disorder. When you think about probation or parole services, what comes to mind? Surveillance? Enforcement? Okay, correct. But do you also think about overdose prevention? Recently, Delinquency and colleagues 2024 conducted a study to understand what supervision officers thought about naloxone. That's the medication that can reverse opioid overdose, the one we've been talking about in several prior episodes this season. Here's the good news. Naloxone is widely known among supervision staff. About 84% of the 109 officers surveyed in the Delinquency study had received some kind of training on it. But here's the catch. Those trainings were all over the place. Some officers got a one-time overview years ago. Others had regular annual refreshers. So even though they'd heard of naloxone, not everyone had the tools or the confidence to actually use it or to discuss it with clients. Some even misunderstood what it is. One officer described it as, quote, a drug used to assist addiction, unquote, when in fact, it's a fast-acting medication that reverses the effects of an overdose. That's a critical distinction. And then there's the barrier to securing naloxone. Staff thought that a lack of awareness or education might prevent a client from securing naloxone, as well as accessibility challenges like cost and availability. There was also stigma surrounding naloxone, particularly because officers felt that clients might be scared that they would be charged with a violation of their supervision conditions if it was found out that they were carrying naloxone. The overwhelming majority of staff felt that possessing naloxone should not be a violation of supervision. These same findings were found in a separate study conducted by Riker and Kleacher, 2019. In this study, probation department leaders pointed out cost, stigma, and even departmental rules as major obstacles to people accessing medications like methadone, buprenorphine, and naltrexone. These authors believe that their study findings indicated a need for administrative level and staff level training, interagency collaboration, and policy changes to increase client access to opioid use disorder treatments. And let's be clear, help is desperately needed. In another study by Binswanger and colleagues 2020, researchers tracked over 140,000 people with criminal legal involvement. They looked at overdose deaths across different supervision settings, prison, jail, and the community, like probation and parole. The findings? More than half of the overdose deaths occurred in the community, and nearly a third happened while the person was on probation. That's right, people weren't just dying after release, they were dying while under supervision. And those at the highest risk were the people who had used opioids daily before their arrest. Interestingly, people who were charged with drug possession or drug delivery were not significantly at more risk of overdose. In a different study, Perrett and colleagues 2024 conducted a scoping review of prior studies examining mortality rates and/or risk factors for people on community supervision in order to establish how or why mortality rates are increasing. Their findings were that mortality rates for people on community supervision are higher than mortality rates for the general public, regardless of the cause of death. One key issue? Lower tolerance after incarceration. When people leave jail or prison, they often return to previous levels of drug use, but their bodies aren't ready. That's when overdoses happen. Also, women are at higher risk of death, particularly for overdoses and suicide, than men. So what does it mean? It means that community supervision is not just a public safety role. It is a public health opportunity. The authors suggest that community supervision settings are a prime target for enhanced overdose prevention efforts, specifically ensuring that clients who have a history of pre-sentence opioid use have access to harm reduction and addiction treatment services. When viewed this way, community supervision settings appear as touchpoints for linking people who need care with treatment. That's what Bromberg and colleagues argued in their study that was published in 2023. In this study, the authors piloted a screening and referral tool in Ukraine for probationers with opioid use disorder. Out of 1,300 people screened, 208 met criteria for an opioid use disorder. Of those, 208 probationers with opioid use disorder, 59% enrolled in the intervention. After the intervention, interest in starting medication therapy increased significantly. Roughly 25% of participants began treatment, and here's the kicker. Over 70% of those who started treatment stayed in treatment for 6 months. Wow. This study shows that when community supervision systems act intentionally, they can absolutely support recovery and make a real difference. Finally, to wrap us up, let's go over some of the policy recommendations surrounding implementing naloxone in community supervision. Lucky for us, the American Probation and Parole Association put out a report in 2019 on the use of naloxone in community supervision. They laid out several factors that agencies should consider if they are thinking about introducing naloxone. First, its alignment with their core mission. Officers might believe that counseling or distributing naloxone is inside or outside the scope of their duties. Agencies need to address this cultural belief. Second, its effectiveness. Naloxone is a highly effective overdose reversal drug. Let me just say it again. Naloxone is a highly effective overdose reversal drug with over 93% survival reported. Whoa. But it does not treat addiction and may require multiple doses depending on the opioids involved. While some critics argue it enables repeated use, proponents stress that saving a life is the first step toward recovery, highlighting the need for immediate treatment referrals post-revival despite limited resources. Third, training. Agencies implementing naloxone should ensure officers receive training on overdose response, including recognizing symptoms, administering naloxone, performing CPR, and calling for help. While training is often free and brief, agencies must plan for its impact on staffing and consult with labor unions if making it mandatory. Fourth, side effects and follow-up care. Opioid overdose is a medical emergency requiring EMS response, as naloxone can wear off quickly and may cause adverse reactions like pain, withdrawal symptoms, or seizures. Agencies should ensure officers are trained to recognize and manage these effects until medical professionals arrive. Fifth, officer safety. Because revived individuals may become disoriented or aggressive, agencies should consider safety measures, such as requiring 2 officers on the scene to protect staff administering naloxone in close proximity. 6, costs. Overdose response programs can be costly, with naloxone kits ranging from $22 to $360. So while many agencies currently receive them for free through state funding, they should plan for potential future cost. 7th, storage. Agencies should develop storage and replacement policies for naloxone, ensuring proper temperature control and protection from sunlight to maintain the medication's effectiveness in field conditions. 8th, reporting. Agencies should coordinate with their state overdose response prevention programs to meet naloxone reporting requirements and to establish internal reporting protocols to track relevant data for their own operational needs. And finally, 9th, liability. While naloxone is considered safe and many states offer liability protections for its use in good faith, agencies should consult legal counsel to understand state-specific laws and ensure proper protection. All right. With that, we've reached the end of our episode on community supervision, staff's roles, responsibilities, and reactions to overdose. We've learned today that community supervision officers aren't doctors. Maybe we already knew that. They're not social workers, but they are in a position to ask questions, spot risk, and make referrals that could save lives. To do this, though, they need training. They need support. And they need policies that make it easier, not harder, for their clients to secure resources. I hope you heard the messages that I'm putting out in this particular episode. They are life-saving, critical, and important. Please come back next time when we will be talking about the experience of people in educational settings. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Aced It podcast. We love hearing from you. So if you have comments, topics to suggest, or some science you'd like us to cover in a future season, please write to me, Danielle Rudes, at Sam Houston State University. My email is drudes, D-R-U-D-E-S, at shsu.edu. And of course, thank you to the Justice Community Overdose Innovation Network, or JCOIN's Coordination and Translation Center, funded by the National Institute on Drug Abuse, housed at George Mason University, where this podcast originated. Thank you to our fabulous scriptwriters and also my fantastic doctoral students, Bryce Kushmerek-McCune and Jalen Magana. And a huge and heartfelt thank you to the team at Slonky LLC for their wonderful production as always. Remember to check out our website, JCOIN-CTC.org, for more cool JCOIN features and opportunities. And tune in again soon for another episode of Aced It.